his name's Walt also, but it's Walter, and it's Walter Vythe. And so if you ever want to take a look at a guy, he's got some really good health programs and some other programs, and I encourage you, we always enjoy working together or whatever. He's actually in South Africa and has a new lifestyle center that he just started in South Africa. Well, so this morning we're going to talk about stress. And you just can't plumb get rid of stress. Stress is a given in this world. Did Christ have stress? Yes. Yeah. Did Moses have stress? How about David? Daniel. Yeah, those are all highfalutin folks. Yeah, Joseph. Yeah. Adam.
Do you think Jesus had stress?
I think he did. Yeah, he cried. Yes. Yeah, he had stress because of unbelief. Yeah, not his unbelief, but human unbelief. And it was, I think it was stressful for him. And so how do we deal with stress? Is there things that we can do? And there is. And we talked a little bit yesterday about some things we can do, but I'd like to look at a few things and how to treat stress. And yesterday y'all were talking about depression, and we'll talk about depression. And depression, and the comment was made about COVID. In the spring of 20, WHO hypothesized that by now, stress would be surpassed by COVID. It did. I'm sorry, surpassed by depression. It did not, because COVID just exacerbated stress. And another issue that just went skyrocketing was anxiety. And if y'all work in healthcare, if you know someone in healthcare, they will tell you that anxiety is a huge issue out there today. As I talk with my physician buddies, they say, well, it's just anxiety's terrible out there. And so we see anxiety is a huge issue. Depression is still an issue, but it really lost some traction with COVID. It just launched both of those others too, stress and anxiety. So we're going to look at the effects of stress and anxiety on the body, and we're going to look at natural treatments for stress and anxiety. And a lot of this you can use for depression, but we'll talk depression specific afterwards. The relationship which exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health of the physical system. If the mind is free and happy from a consciousness of right doing, so I'm going to give you some prescriptions today, and you'll want to write these down. And here's the first one. A mind free and happy from a consciousness of right doing and a sense of satisfaction in causing happiness to others. A consciousness of right doing. Do you have a consciousness of right doing? Or do you have a consciousness of being whatever? Maybe mean as a striped snake. Or did you do something wrong? That guilt can affect physiology. Can the mind affect the body? How many of y'all know where Fort Oglethorpe is? Fort Oglethorpe. Fort Oglethorpe is right north of Chickamauga Battlefield. You got Chattanooga, you got Rossville, Fort Oglethorpe, Chickamauga. Chickamauga Battlefield and Chickamauga. Mary Lou was pregnant with Walter. She was up in Cleveland with her kinfolk. I had to go down to Fort Oglethorpe to see my aunt and uncle to get something. And as I left their house in Mary Lou's car, it was an IROC Z28. And remember that car? You had one. What year? 86. Yes. An IROC Z28. Same year. I had an 86. A lot of fun. I left the house, it started sprinkling. I got only 2 blocks away, and it was raining cats and dogs. And as I went to stop at the stop sign to take a left turn, it just kept sliding. And right through that intersection, right in front of the Baptist preacher who was coming to do the Sunday night meeting at that Baptist church on the corner. And he T-boned me in the driver's side. Today, they would consider that a total, but not then. But it tore the car up pretty good. I got out. We didn't have cell phones back then, and I went to the neighbor's house, called 911. And actually, no, I didn't. They didn't have 911 then. Yeah. I called the number that the people had for the police department in Fort Oglethorpe, and I called my uncle's house 2 blocks away, and he came. And, I waited for the record to carry it off, and it was all tore up. And he said, "You're going to have green apple two-step tomorrow." Now, how many of y'all know what green apple two-step is?
Green apples two-step?
Green apple two-step. Yes, a loose stool. And I said, "No." Now, my uncle, he's an anesthetist, and I said, "No." I said, I'm not tore up. My car's tore up. I'm fine. There's no reason for me to have green apple two-step tomorrow. He said, "Son, trust me, tomorrow you're going to have green apple two-step." I thought he just didn't know what he's talking about. Guess what happened the next day? Green apple two-step. Why? My brain was tore up, which then caused my digestive system to be tore up. We looked yesterday. Before you treat the body, you must treat the mind, the brain. That's exactly right. And the brain runs everything. But yet, can digestion affect the brain? Yes. Let me give you a key. A surgeon gave me this key years ago. And he was the top surgeon in Philadelphia. He was also a major trauma physician. He didn't make enough money as a surgeon, so he, at night, worked in the trauma center at that big hospital in Philadelphia. He had a huge home, 6-car garage, and it was not Pintos in those garages. And one day, God impressed him that he needed to leave allopathic medicine and go into lifestyle medicine, and he obeyed. Very smart man. He left all that, went into lifestyle health. Well, guess what happened? He had this huge pipeline of money coming into his house, and his wife was not happy. She left him, and the kids left him because he changed. But what Joel taught me was, if you're wanting to address a problem, you've got to do 3 things. And we talked about it yesterday somewhat, but let's talk about it today. I like repetition. I learn by over and over and over. So you've got your blood cell. And Joel said, you cannot put anything in the blood that can harm the cell. Remember me talking about that? And so make sure nothing's in there. But give the blood what it needs: fats, proteins, complex carbohydrates, vitamins, which are a catalyst that kicks on the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, minerals, which is a catalyst that kicks on the vitamins, which then kicks on the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. You've got to have hormones. You've got to have oxygen. You've got to have water. All those things that it takes to be in that, to be the perfect food for the cell. And then you have to have good perfusion. The next thing he said is you've got to identify the organ, the primary, the secondary, and maybe even the tertiary organs that can affect the primary system or organ. So, stress. What organ or system are we dealing with? The brain. Now, are there any secondary organs or systems that can affect the primary organ, the brain? The heart? The gut? The digestive system? Yep. Those are 2 big ones. Cardiac can affect it, vascular flow, and digestion. The brain communicates with the stomach communicates with the brain, or the digestive system communicates with the brain, and it can be nerves, it can be chemicals. Well, not long ago, I read a report that said there's a new communication system, and the only way they can describe it is Bluetooth. Bluetooth. They don't understand it. There is no chemical, there is no nerve, there is nothing. It just, they communicate like it's Bluetooth. Isn't that amazing? No, it's not Bluetooth. But there's some communication that's like, they can't find anything physiologically, but it's communicating. Like there's a radio down here and a radio up here. I don't remember. So there's communication. And the gut is huge. The gut is huge. And so we've got to make sure we take care of the gut. We take care of the heart in order to take care of the brain. Because the brain, yes, we got to address the brain, but if these guys are messed up, they're going to still keep taking out the brain. So, going back to the prescription, we need to be free and happy. There are so many people that are tore up all the time. There's a lady in, boy, there's so much I want to share with y'all. There's a lady in, why am I wanting to share this with y'all? Why am I here? Why am I here?
Because we need
To inform us, to be better.
Yeah, I could be up the house putting in a radio right now.
Yeah, but we can nail your feet to the floor and keep you here.
Yeah, but why do I go week after week after week?
And creating happiness to others.
The reason I go almost every weekend is I have a true belief that soon there'll be no work done in ministerial lines but medical missionary work. I also believe that in Matthew it says our commission is to point people to Christ. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. Our goal is to point the sin-sick soul to Christ. Now, had a girl come in from Sevierville. And another one is just, yesterday I talked about the lady looked like a whoop dog. This girl looked like a whoop dog. She went to the ER in Newport, and she had just come off some really hard drugs. She cold turkeyed. She was having significant withdrawals. And the ER said, we don't deal with that here. Go see Walt at the mustard seed. And so she came. And so as I was talking to her about what she could do for her drug addiction, I said, where do you go to church? She says, I don't go to church. I can't go to church. Why can't you go to church? She says, I'm not perfect. And only perfect people go to church. Well, we had a good outcome. We really did. And I told her about this guy called David. I said, you ain't killed nobody, have you? She says, what? I said, you ain't killed nobody, have you? Now, you understand what I just said. And she says, no. I said, okay. Did David kill somebody? And I told her some terrible, awful things that David did. And then I said, you sure you ain't killed nobody? She goes, no. I said, let me tell you about a guy called Paul. Terrible, awful things that Paul did. And showed her hope. So when I say that we're to point the sin-sick soul to Christ, that includes us. Amen. We help each other. And so the reason I come out is because I believe that soon there'll be no work done in ministerial lines but medical missionary work. And I believe that our mission is to point folks to Christ. Y'all need to have the tools to do it. That is why I'm here, to help y'all be more effective. But the issue of free and happy, if a person is not happy, I was in New York at a convention with Dr. Agatha, and we were talking with medical folks out of New York City. We were up at the camp. There's a big room of people, and we would sing that song we sang yesterday, "A merry heart doeth good like a medicine." And A lady stands up in the back. It was kind of like everybody know we were getting ready to start. And it was a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sabbath, Sunday. So it was a pretty long conference. And the lady stands up and she says, I need to tell you about that song. She says, my job is, my specialty is bone marrow. That's all I deal with is bone marrow. And she says, when a person is happy, their bone marrow produces a chemical that affects their immune system to the positive. And if they're not happy, then it doesn't produce that chemical. Isn't that amazing? There was this nurse in Western Tennessee. To make extra money, she would go and do labs. And she would, whether it was businesses, churches, individuals, whatever, and she would go draw labs. Well, there's a group of people that she went to, and their labs were, the protein was low on a lot of the people. And that's just odd. And so she, as a good nurse, she wanted to help them. And she says, okay, tell me, what do you eat for breakfast? What do you eat for dinner? What do you eat for supper? What do you eat for breakfast, dinner, supper? To the whole group of these folks that had low protein based on their labs. Everybody presented that they ate a good protein. And she just didn't figure it out. So she contacted a physician who's friends of ours. And so he goes into this group and starts, again, inquiring, what do you eat for breakfast and dinner and supper? And they all presented to him good protein. And so he starts investigating more and more, and as he has his assessment skills, he identifies the problem. Have you ever seen a group of people, it was a church. Have you ever seen a group of people just worried about what you do and what you do and what you do and what you do? And you know the people? That was that church. They're a very conservative church, but a very critical church. So how did that affect the protein? And we'll learn today that as you're stressed, adrenaline goes up. Your digestion shuts off when you are stressed is one of the things that happens. And so the job of the stomach is to break things down, and the duodenum is to break things down from macronutrients to micronutrients, big to little. Who's ever been in an apple orchard and watched them grade apples? Little, like carvers, little, medium, big apples. Our villi, it looks like shag carpet. And it looks like a finger, really. And it's got lymphatic vessels here, it's got blood vessel here, and it's got a screen around it that's a real small screen that only allows small nutrients, macronutrients into it that have been broke down small enough that it can get into the body and not cause harm, or has been broke down enough that it will work. The big stuff just goes right on out the feces. Well, when we're stressed, digestion shuts down. When the bear is chasing us, when I'm in Africa, I say the bear. They don't know what a bear is, but they know a lion. But yet they're quick to tell me, and we say fight or flight. They say you don't fight a lion. You just flight. Hope you're faster than the other person. So what happens is when we're stressed, digestion shuts down to shuts off. And as that happens, the food is not properly broke down small enough to be absorbed. And their problem was the protein was not. Though they were eating adequate protein, they were just defecating the protein, and it wasn't going into the blood. So you'll find many times it is better for me. If I'm stressed on something, I told you how my brain thinks yesterday. I'm always wanting to get this done, this done, this done. It is better that I skip the meal. Even though Mary Lou's made something, and she cooks good, doesn't she? She cooks good. But it's better that she knows my stomach. And it doesn't offend her that I don't eat the meal she just fixed me if this thing's cranking up too much that I can't slow down enough to eat.
Thank you for that, because I usually give my husband a bad time when he says, I'm going to fast tonight, and I've already fixed the things. So I'll do better.
So all these people's problem were, they were just a bunch of critical people. Can we be critical people? And so it says, we're doing prescriptions for managing stress. And the first one is having a mind that is free and happy. That does not mean Pollyanna. We need to be critical thinkers. We need, and you know what I mean by critical thinking, not being critical. But we're at a time coming up as never before, and we need to be very observant of what's going on. But we just don't want to, we want to be happy people. From a consciousness of right doing and a sense of satisfaction in causing happiness to others. There are people who just enjoy getting under other people's skin. You know them? I mean, it's like that's their mission in life. They just enjoy making other people miserable. But according to this, it's really not healthy for that person also. It creates a cheerfulness that will react upon the whole system, causing a freer circulation of blood. Perfect circulation is perfect health is perfect circulation. So causing a freer circulation of blood and a toning up of the entire body. A great deal of the sickness which afflicts humanity has its origin in the mind and can only be cured by restoring the mind to health. There are many more that we imagine who are sick mentally. There are very many more that we imagine who are sick mentally. Heart sickness makes many dyspeptics. That's the stomach problems. For mental troubles has a paralyzing influence upon the digestive organs. So if you have digestive problems, so a person's saying they have IBS, they've got acid reflux, they've got stomach, inflammation of the stomach. No, inflammation of the stomach. Gastritis or whatever. What's a secondary problem that could be the issue of that problem? Here, yeah, mental, exactly. So it goes both ways? It goes both ways. For mental trouble has a paralyzing influence upon the digestive organs. The mind controls the whole man. All our actions, good or bad, have their source in the mind. It is the mind that worships God, we talked about that yesterday, and allies us to heavenly beings. Excuse me just a second. We have a search and rescue going on right now. I'm having...
Someone said he's a 21st Renaissance man, many hats.
You've got to keep us informed about your search.
Yeah.
I'll keep you informed. They're talking about sending in a helicopter. I don't think they're going to need it. They're asking if I need a helicopter. My guys there will let them know. The mind controls the whole man. All our actions, good or bad, have their source in the mind. It is the mind that worships God and allies us to heavenly beings. And that's what we said was the most important things yesterday about our mind. Yet many spend all their lives without becoming intelligent regarding the jewel casket that contains this treasure. And so what happens is, yes, we want to spend all this time learning about what we need to do for the heart or what we need to do for digestion. But do we spend time in what we need to do to make sure that the brain's running well?
Yeah.
That's very important. Very well. What, as Joel said, the surgeon, what can affect it from a negative standpoint, but Oh, I didn't mention that. So we want to make sure if we have an issue that we're dealing with, we've got to identify what is going on that could be harming that organ or system. But what does that organ and system need? Nine-tenths of the diseases from which men suffer from have their foundation in the mind. That does not mean we're crazy. It just can mean we're stressed. So what is stress? Stress is the body's response to a real or perceived threat or stressor. Real or perceived. So let's say I'm driving home this evening and I'm heading up through this 2-lane road up through there, and I'm just booking it to get back and following this fella, and all of a sudden out comes from the bushes blue lights. And they pull in behind me. Is that a stressor? But they whip past me and pull in behind the next guy and pull the guy in front of me over. He wasn't after me, but it was perceived. Many times we perceive something, but it's really okay. But it can still tear us up. Here's an example. There was a lady who worked in a factory. The boss comes in the morning. She was his secretary. He comes in and just blows right by her. Ignored her. Didn't say a word to her. Oh, she gets upset. Oh no. I had to type something for him yesterday, and it was really important. I messed up. I must have messed up on it, and he was mad at me. He's going to fire me. I know it. She's a single mom. She's got kids. He's going to fire me. I know it. I've never been fired before. What do I do? Well, I'm not going to have the record of being fired. I'll just quit. No, I don't want to quit. And she's just all tore up between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock about what's happening, what she's going to do. Is she going to do? What's she going to get for another job? Is there something out there? Is there another job? Where else can I work? From 8 to 10, she's all tore up. And about 10 o'clock, he comes out and says, Sissy, we're having a major problem in the plant. Can you help me? Didn't have nothing to do with her. But do we ever perceive? I was at a church one time. We had to change how we did potluck.
That's another division.
We had to change how we did potluck. Susie didn't taste any of my lasagna. Susie did not try any of my lasagna. She must be mad at me. Crazy, isn't it? So you know what we did? So we stuck all the spaghettis, because we chose, our potluck was not really potluck, it was our fellowship dinner, because it wasn't just potluck who knows what, but it was organized. You know, we made it organized, because you set up several lasagnas and several spaghettis and several this and several that. Yeah, but we had to change it. So what we did is we ended up going and we only set out one spaghetti at a time, and only one lasagna at a time, and only one green beans at a time. And when that was gone, we put another one because the women would get upset. Crazy, isn't it?
Ridiculous.
Perceived. So stress is the body's response to a real or a perceived threat or stressor. Stress is our body's internal alarm system. Stress prepares the body to take action. That goes back to that fight or flight. Yes?
Could you go back to that single sentence when we're taking pictures of these so we
That
can
one?
have them? Yes.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yes.
And Walt, don't forget, it's really bad when someone gets, gets upset because you forgot their dish in the oven and you didn't get it.
Oh, absolutely. I saw that happen at our church 2 weeks ago. I happened to be home 2 weeks ago, and someone's meal didn't get brought out. Oh, they're tore up.
Yeah, and also we've had people be tore up because we had food labeled vegan or gluten-free.
Yeah, they got it because you labeled it that? Yeah, we have, one time our church decided to be really specific, and there were some apples out, and they labeled them vegan. Crazy, isn't it?
I love that.
Aren't women more prone to stressing with that though?
Pardon?
Women.
Oh, I think so. I see that. Maybe I just don't have good observation, but that's what I see. Oh, we don't care. We just want to eat. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's some things that tears up fellas, but I think y'all get tore up more than us. Yeah. Sometimes.
Different question.
Yes.
Do we need to pray for your group there, your crew?
Pardon?
Should we pray for your crew?
Oh, yes. Let's have a prayer for them. Yes. Our dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you again for your love and your care. And Lord, you know exactly what's going on with this fella up in the mountains. And Lord, we ask that crew be able to get through that area, which is difficult to get to this man, to get him to medical assistance. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you. There's 3 types of stress. There's acute stress, episodic acute, and chronic stress. Acute stress is immediate onset, which forces the body into an immediate reaction. Could be a minor traffic accident, an argument, impending deadline. That's acute. In healthcare, a lot of y'all work in healthcare, you understand the difference in acute. A hospital is an acute care facility. Then you have a chronic, which would be like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. But it's kind of dying right now, but maybe 5-6 years ago, there was an anesthesiologist was trying to put a new word out for COPD and call it COLD, cold, and call it chronic obstructive lung disease because he didn't feel anybody knew what pulmonary meant. But the industry of anesthesiologists felt he wanted his name attached to a new word. But chronic means over a period of time. Acute means right now when that guy T-boned my IROC Z28, Mary Lou's IROC Z28. Acute episodic, acute stress which occurs frequently, escalating demands for personal time and attention, careless worrying, anxiety, a type A behavior characterized by competitive drive, aggressiveness, impatience, urgency, and we probably know some of those people. And maybe even we are some of those people. Chronic stress, long-term stress, unrelenting job, family pressures, sleep deprivation, strained roles and responsibilities at work, at home, health. Health is a big long-term, or can be a long-term stressor as people continually deal with a health issue getting worse and worse. Now this is really interesting here. It has been estimated that 75 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians, I get talking too fast. It has been estimated that 75 to 90% of all visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related problems. Isn't that something? Huge. Job stress is far and away the leading source of stress for adults, but stress levels have also escalated in children, teenagers, college students, and the elderly for other reasons. These including increased crime, violence, other threats to personal safety, pernicious peer pressures that lead to substance abuse and other unhealthy lifestyle habits, social isolation. We see that as we get older, as we lose spouses, as we lose family members, friends. Who's ever heard of the Breezel-Belloc study? It's a gold standard in lifestyle medicine, and it's the Alameda County study. Neil Nedley talks about it in his book Proof Positive, and they found that there were 7 habits that cause people to die quicker. There was a young gal who was doing her dissertation, her PhD dissertation, and she joined with them and added an 8th item, which they allowed her to join, and that was loneliness. Loneliness can make a person die quicker. The erosion of family and religious values and ties, very much so. When I first came to Newport, almost 20 years ago, 21 years ago, almost 21 years ago, I would go into Greene County, Cott County, Sevier County, Jeff County, and go to businesses, and these may have 300, 400 employees, and I would do, was actually the Breesville Belloc study. I would do the questionnaire there as one of the components that I did. And the last question asks, from spirituality, would you say you have deep spiritual, moderate, or no spiritual? We're in the Bible Belt. And so I would say out of all those people, if I say 300, 400 people, out of no spirituality, no interest in spiritual was less than 10. Moderate was somewhere in the teens. Everybody else was deep. When I now go, 20 years later, most of the people are now in moderate. And you would say, well, Walt, that's move-ins. But not really. I can tell if someone's a move-in or not. How can I tell if they're a move-in? Do they talk like me? And most of those people talk like me. And so that's people, local people, who grew up in the Bible Belt. That's scary. Another thing that we're seeing change that's very, very dangerous, is we have the issue of people are, entitled. They're entitled to, I had a boy one time come to me, he was on our fire department. He said, Walt, Chief, I want you to co-sign a car loan for me. Brand new car. I said, why? He said, I've never had a new car. I said, I've never had a new car either. I'm not going to waste the money on the depreciation. I'll buy a used car. And he says, well, I deserve it. I've never had one. But here's the dangerous part. People are now saying, you can go to heaven? I deserve to go to heaven. Is that dangerous, Pastor?
Oh, yeah.
You're going to heaven? I deserve to go too. If you can go. That's very dangerous.
It's like, for years, usually you run a race, first, second, third place, you get a ribbon. Now everybody gets a ribbon. Everybody, there's no losers. Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's that same principle. If it's good enough for you, it's good enough for all of us.
Yes. Very deceptive. So yes, erosion of family and religious values. The loss of other strong sources of social support that are powerful stress busters. As we look at the issue of what about, could we put stress from internet, Facebook, social media? Have y'all had Scott Retzmuth here? Scott Retzmuth.
No, but I'd love to.
Oh, Scott would be great to come in. He really would. I encourage you.
A lot of his videos, we could show them on.
Yeah, y'all can show the videos. Very, very good, informative information. Scott's done a great job. And he's in Collegedale now, isn't he?
Look like it, but I don't know about Scott's not there.
Is he not there?
He doesn't live in Collegedale.
Okay, but his ministry's there, isn't it? Little Light?
Little Light is there.
Is that not Scott's?
That's Scott Meyer.
Oh, okay. No, Retzmuth is the one I'm thinking of. Yeah.
Little Light be coming
He
here.
lives in
Okay.
Michigan.
Yes, that's where he was. Yeah, we are all subject to stressors. The amount of stress we experience depends on how we respond to them. Do you remember your first job? I remember ours, Walter. I mean, anything wrong with him, go to the doctor. And again, I worked in that. And if it's a weekend, go to the ER. I mean, Mary Lou was so protective. Ashley comes along. Still, we go check on her, whatever. Carson came along. He'll be okay. Is that not true? My first house fire, Ooltewah. Y'all know where Ooltewah is. Right near, it was probably a block, 2 blocks, maybe a block from where my daddy was born. Somewhere between a block and 2 blocks from where he was born. And it was a single structure. Back then, we rode the back of a fire truck, on the tailboard. Back then, you could join today, get your turnouts today, and go fight a house fire tonight. You can't do that today. That's what happened. I get there. On the nozzle was the captain. Lieutenant was backing him up, and they shoved me right behind him and said, "Go, learn." I go up there, go up the stairs, bedroom on the left, bedroom on the right. It was involved, both pretty decently involved. They knocked down the hallway. We always did a right attack first, started doing a right attack, and then it was in the hallway from here up. Well, it runs around 12 to 1,500 degrees. I did have an air pack on at that point. That was not normal. I'd never seen that before. I took off flying down them stairs, trying to pull off that mask. I couldn't breathe fast enough that air pack could give me. I'm trying to rip that thing off. I get on the front porch. I'm breathing. I'm hyperventilating. They gave me a bag to breathe in. I'd never seen that before. It scared me. I hadn't been trained. Today, well, first you're going to know what to do. I mean, you're going to see the spotting. You know what to do to cool it down. That shouldn't even happen. But if it did, it's okay. It's kind of cool looking. And just put it out and keep going. What's the difference? Experience, isn't it? How do we respond to it? You got stressors, financial, work, relationships, health, traffic, pollution. It goes through the brain, and your response verbally, physically, mentally determines how your brain processes that. Now, some people, you wonder if it doesn't go through the brain. They hear something and then right out of their mouth. There are those people don't even process. But it should process. And the brain should protect you and them and everybody else. Dr. Walter Cannon's classic research, Cat Confronted by a Dog. What he did is Cannon took a cat that hated dogs and a dog that hated cats. He took the vitals on the cat, and then he turned them loose. And then he snatched up the cat, and he takes the vitals, and this is what happens. Heart rate went up, respiration went up, blood sugar went up, clotting factor went up. Why the clotting factor went up? In case that dog bit it. That's just nature. Muscle function went up. Why? It had to run. Digestion, what did it do? It shut down. Digestion shut down. Well, then they went to look, well, it did this to cats. Does it do the same to humans? That's how you research. Well, this is what they found that happens to humans when we're stressed. Increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, increased respirations, increased hormone and adrenaline, increased blood sugar, increased blood clotting mechanism, increased muscle function, cause somewhat of a queasy stomach could be, nervous perspiration, headaches, sporadic eating, increased hunger, loss of appetite. It can go either way. You have people who, when they're stress eaters. You have some people, when they're stressed, they don't eat. And even the same person could be either one. Loss of appetite, change in sleep habits, reduction in the digestive process, reduction in the immune system. There was also, let's see, did I put it here? No. I don't think I have it down. I'll tell you this. There was a female physician at Harvard that has seen a study on prostate and found that when a male finds out that there's something going on and they're trying to figure out if he has cancer, that his healing factor can go down because of something called a period of unknown. So she decides to test females. She tested them 4 times a day. from the point that they either, it was for breast cancer, so whether it was a mammo came, whether it was by palpation, there was something identified, and so they did a biopsy. So at the point they did the biopsy, until they had a result and an action plan, or plan of action, they measured the healing factor in the body 4 times a day. Dumped the healing factor because of the period of unknown. And it took as much as 4 and 6 weeks to get that response back because of various things. It could be, the person's on vacation who did that, or this happened, or just to get back into the office, schedule an appointment, whatever. And so what she strongly encouraged physicians across the United States, when we're testing for cancer, have a result as quick as possible. Because even if the woman had breast cancer and they had a plan of care using whatever that the oncologist recommended, the healing factor came back up because there was a plan of action. The brain was satisfied. Okay, we're good. We got a plan. We're going to hit it. And so she said, let people know it's quick. And they found the same thing identical with prostate in males. So reduction in the immune system, also there can be a reduction in the healing factor. And this physician said, at any time a woman needs good healing is if they have breast cancer or any kind of cancer, or a male. Under stress, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline, which raises blood pressure and prepares the body for doing battle. When physical action is taken, the body uses up the stress hormone in the blood, reducing the stress and relaxing the body. There are times when people would come to me, they are all angry. Someone on staff had messed up. And they had right to be, there was a problem, and they had right to come and complain. But sometimes they were just, ready to tear me up with an Uzi. And so mentally, I would, just mentally step aside, let them blow the wall behind me, and then when they finished blowing up, then I'd say, okay, let's address it. Well, sometimes they were so angry, I'd say, I tell you what, go take a walk and come back, and let's talk about it. Sometimes they got me tore up so much I said, let's go take a walk. You go that way, I go this way, and we'll be back in this amount of time. Can people get you tore up? Yeah, some people get you tore up. And so that exercise did what? The cortisol came down. Yeah. And so when you do this exercise, is that a possible remedy for stress?
Yes.
It is. So let's go back to Kempner. And you kind of get the idea. I like Kempner at Duke. He was just a smart fella. Kempner had his patients exercising 4 times a day. No matter if they were there for cardiovascular, they were there for renal, if they were there for diabetes, if they're whatever they were there for, he would exercise them 4 times a day. And you got so many benefits out of that. One is the brain. One, circulation, and you lower those hormones that can help. When physical action is not taken, such as when we're sitting at our desk, stuck in traffic. Fortunately, we don't live in Atlanta. I don't know if any of y'all have to go to Atlanta or not. I do not like driving in traffic. I don't even like the traffic in Newport. 3 o'clock. It's terrible. Hurrying to finish our taxes before midnight. Y'all ever been there? Stress hormones and chemicals in our blood remains for a long period of time. Stress affects the onset, treatment, or recovery from the following diseases and conditions: cardiovascular disease, cancer, Angina. Angina is just the heart scream. We've got 3 kinds of muscles. You know muscles. Heart's a total different muscle of all the other muscles. And the heart muscle, God made it, if it doesn't have adequate supply of blood, it screams to stop you from doing what you're doing so you don't take it out, hopefully. So it gives you angina. Can stress do that? Yeah. Diabetes, tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, hypertension. Stress is the #1 cause of hypertension. I was surprised yesterday someone didn't ask about hypertension. How do we address hypertension? The #1 cause is stress. Stress raises cortisol, stress lowers potassium, boom, you've got hypertension. #2 is dehydration. #3 is outside ideal body weight. #4 is sleep. 2 years ago, June, the American Heart Association said that and we mentioned this yesterday, just 2 days a week of less than 7 hours of sleep can give you hypertension. Amazing. The next one is renal. Kidneys are the switches that regulate blood pressure. Too much sodium. The sodium issue is more so the little girl with the umbrella. She's the one that's going to kill you. It's not as much the Celtic and the Himalayan. Yes, be cautious, because it does change conductivity, and conductivity is the electricity system in the body. And to explain that, if you had, let's go back to chemistry, and you've got a flask, and you plug in a light bulb, and the common goes across, but the 2 hot wires go in there, it's not going to come on because they're not connected. You pour in distilled water, it's not going to come on because there's no mineralization for electron movement. But you start pouring in salt. Now you've got mineralization. Now your salinity starts coming up. And the light bulb, more salt you put in, the brighter the bulb gets. Y'all remember that from chemistry. And then the professor then took more distilled water and pours in there. Salinity goes down. The light bulb goes down. That's exactly what happens in our body from hypertension. Just one thing with salinity, or it's called conductivity. So the higher the conductivity or the electricity in our body, the more prone we are to cardiac problems. And hypertension is one of those. So when we eat more sodium, our selenium goes up. Our conductivity goes up. When we're dehydrated, it goes up because we have less water, so it's more concentrated minerals. The next one would be clogged arteries, atherosclerosis, hardening of the arteries, arteriosclerosis. If you got a vessel that moves when it pumps, you're good. But it goes rigid, then the pressure goes up. And the other one is just heart function. And those are some major issues that we look at for hypertension. But stress is the #1. Ulcers. Can stress cause ulcers?
Yes.
We've known that for long. What about AIDS? But wait a minute. I thought AIDS was a bloodborne pathogen. HIV is a bloodborne pathogen, but it can turn into full-blown AIDS with stress. Muscle-related conditions, allergies, common colds. Have you ever been just plumb tore up, stressed, and you get sick?
Yep.
Sure. Warts, skin rashes, loss of hair, graying of hair. Dad told me a story that happened in Hamilton County when he was a little boy. There was a man in Chattanooga, in the Chattanooga area, and 2 little boys came in. This was in the 30s or early 40s. 2 little boys came in with fake guns and act like they were holding up this old man who had a little store. Scared him to death. Well, not to death, he didn't die, but his hair turned gray. Isn't that something? That little event. Pardon?
I'm really not
No. Yeah. So where's the real danger? Acute stress or chronic stress? Chronic stress. Yeah, that's the problem. Chronic stress. Chronic, unrelieved stress causes the damage. Mental effects of ongoing stressors. And why do I talk about the problems? To hopefully get our attention why we need to address it. Or it might help us understand why we're this person. Mental fatigue, loss of spontaneity, creativity, confusion, forgetfulness, difficulties in making decisions. Have you ever been just really stressed out and you couldn't make a decision that you normally should have? Anxiety, depressions, lower self-worth. Have you ever gone, we don't do this anymore, but we used to. Phone's ringing in the house. Got out of the car and you heard the phone ringing. You run to the door and you're pulling the keys and you drop the keys and you pick them up. Remember those days? Stress, just trying, you couldn't just pick it up. I remember we had two fellas that lived in the fire hall with me at Collegedale. One, let's say we're working a bad wreck and we're needing to start an IV. One of them, he was so stressed out. The other one, the second one became an ER doc, and he would be very good. The first fella, he'd just get so tore up, and he'd miss it, he'd blow it, he was good, but the higher the acuity, the worse he got, because he was just stressed. Lower intellectual functioning, boredom, emotional hypersensitivity. You ever seen that situation? Don't talk to Bobby today. He and his wife got into it last night. You know what I'm talking about? People they're just, because they're so stressed, you just look at them and they explode. And there are people like that. Feelings of isolation, alienation, tendency towards suppressed feelings, withdrawal, aggression. It goes either way. A quick temper. Loss of control, increased risk-taking, increased drug use and abuse. Have you ever heard a person say, it's a good thing I don't drink? You ever had someone say that? Yeah. Or they'd be going to the bar. Did you know that just 1 minute of anger can suppress your immune system for up to 6 hours? This is in Neil Nedley's book, Neil Nedley's Proof Positive. Proof Positive. So I asked my good friend, Arvo Khanna, one time. Arvo and I were teaching a class, and I said, Arvo, he's a neurologist. He specializes in brain function. I said, help me with this physiology. I make the hypothesis, but you can tell me, is it true? Could I change that word? Or let me go back. I said, that word anger, look at the physiology going on right there. Can the same physiology happen with stress? He goes, absolutely. I said, so can I then, because he and Neil used to work together, I said, can I take Neil's statement here? Did you know that just 1 minute of stress can suppress your immune system for up to 6 hours? He said, absolutely. Isn't that huge? Someone pulls in front of you. You pick up the phone and someone's mean as whatever on the telephone. Or someone, you know what I'm talking about. Yes?
Is there a connection between this statement and the Bible verse that says, be angry and sin not?
So what is that? The anger of God. That's not a sin. So what's it talking about?
In my thought, it's just my thought, that if you, it's okay to get angry, but not to hold on to that anger. Because if you notice it says just 1 minute.
Uh-huh.
So the sooner you let go of the anger, the sooner you will be restored to, you won't cause you to get more and more angry where you've sinned.
Yeah.
That is against God's will.
Could it be that the word anger has different meanings?
I think it does.
An example, I had a nurse from Romania. And there was there's different ways in Romania to say the word love. I love ice cream. I love my dog. I love my spouse. Oh, I love that pretty of green. Now, is there a big disparity between I love my spouse and that color of green? Or should there be? In Romania, there's a whole different word for I love my spouse. I said, so what is it? She says, I can't tell you. What do you mean you can't tell me? She says, you're not my spouse. I'm not allowed to say it. What are you saying? She said, only I can say that when I get married to my spouse. And only my spouse can say it to me. I said, how do you learn it? Well, you can hear your parents say it. But you don't say it to other than your spouse. So could there be another word? Could there be multiple words for anger that's different than our just perception of getting angry? Possibly.
Also, is there any stress, is there any level of stress or anxiety that's healthy? Is it necessary to be?
Well, let's go back to psychology. What about eustress? Remember eustress in psychology? E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S. Remember that? Eustress is good for us. So it's a type of stress that's actually beneficial to us. So yes, psychology says there is a good stress that's good for us. So there's some stresses that can be good, others that are bad.
Like parents.
Ah.
Having a baby, for example, is good stress.
Having a baby's eustress, okay?
When you're a musician, the nervousness that you feel before you play enhances your performance, whereas it's not the same nervousness or stress that it's different.
It is true. There was I don't remember which, it was back in the Walter Cronkite days. It wasn't Cronkite, but it was one of those guys. Yeah, one of those guys. And someone asked him, are you stressed before you go out every night at 6 o'clock? And he goes, absolutely. If I wasn't, I wouldn't do a good job.
Right, exactly.
Does it affect your body?
I believe it does, possibly. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So we've talked about the effects of stress on the body. Let's talk about natural treatments for stress and anxiety. So did you already start writing prescriptions? Be happy. Did you start writing those? So I'm going to give you a bunch more prescriptions now. A merry heart doeth good like a medicine, but a broken spirit drieth the bones. And we sang this one yesterday. Are you a happy person? Are you happy? So this gal comes in. How do I say this? How many of y'all from the South? Okay. There's a difference in flatlanders and mountain people. There was this lady came in. She'd come in for years. And she just had the personality of being just tore up a lot. You ever meet them kind of people?
I met one this morning.
You met one this morning.
I walked up to a guy and I said, man, I hope you're having a good day. And he said, what's your problem?
There are some people you just look at them wrong and they go off. Well, this person was one of those people. And I noticed lately a change. Well, they came in and with an issue, and I said, tell me, 0 to 10, what is your stress level? And she said 0. Well, first of all, 0 is usually not for anybody, much less this person, because she was usually a 10 plus. I said, now, 0's the lowest, no stress. 10 is a lot of stress. I just want to clarify that on that. I didn't say I want to clarify, but I just clarified with her. She says, no, it's a 0. And I'm trying to think, how did this person change from to none? And I said, how is it a 0? She says, about 2 years ago, I found Jesus. And I just give everything to Him now.
Oh, good.
Can it make a difference?
Absolutely.
Huge. Huge, it can make a difference.
That advice you gave yesterday was good about making the
Oh, absolutely.
columns.
It makes a big difference. Having a merry heart. It doesn't mean Pollyanna. And we're all the age to understand Pollyanna. You know, oh, whatever. But being happy. Do we have something to be happy for? Do we? We do. There are some sad times. Christ, as we said before, exhibited some sad times. But we have a reason to be happy. We do.
Can I share something?
Yes.
I ordered Vibrant Life magazine.
Oh,
for
yeah.
this meeting.
Great magazine.
And this was a special issue about mine that, which were 2 weeks ago, or 2.5 weeks ago, I ordered it.
Speak up loud, stand up.
Oh, so anyway, I got a notification Thursday that they were just shipping. And I went, oh no, because it was ground shipping. I said, it's not going to make it. So I was pretty upset about it, but you know, there's nothing you can do, no control over it. But I called the ABC in Collegedale and said, have you actually shipped them? And they said, yes, unfortunately we have. And I said, well, I have a pastor in Hawaii, could have come and gone, but anyway. Anyway, so I turned it over to God, and I said, God, if you want them here, you'll get them here. If not, then I'll give them to people later. No big deal. They came yesterday. When I got home, they were there. So you all, please pick up a magazine out.
All right.
Anyway, that's
Can we look at life that way? When I a little over 20 years ago, I was director of a clinic outside of D.C. And I was impressed to leave regular health care. I was impressed to leave what I was doing at the clinic because I was not doing what I should do as a father because I was working a lot. Even it was a good thing. I was just there literally 7 days a week. I would take the patients to church. I would take them out on Sabbath afternoons, and I just wasn't there for my kids. And God said, you're not home. You're not seeing your kids. I would get home usually midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. Who I met was my golden retriever, who would jump up and put her hands on my shoulder, and I'd hug her, and I could feel the stressors go out, but it wasn't my wife and my kids. So I left. And so I said to God, what do you want me to do? And I was impressed to do a health food store. We went to, and I wasn't sure where to go. Well, I wanted to go back to Tennessee. That's my home. Mary Lou's not from there. She's from up near Canada in the Adirondacks. And so the place in Tennessee she liked the best was Hartford. And so one morning I'd gotten in from work and I was sitting there in a chair and I was looking at the atlas and she says, what are you doing? And I said, we're moving here. She said, where? I said, we're moving to Hartford, Tennessee. And we're going to work in Newport. And she said, why? I said, that's the only place you'll go home. I said, okay. She said, okay. So we went to Newport and to look, and we found the mustard seed, but there was and there was an Adventist lady running it. Well, I couldn't go to open a store in a little town of 8,000 people and with another Adventist there. So we went on, we went in, we saw her and recognized who she was. But when I was thinking, well, this town's not going to work out, Mary Lou was talking to her, and ladies talk things to ladies that men don't talk. They don't talk to us. Well, it was obvious she's pregnant, and she was about to have a baby, and she had told God that if she could get pregnant, she would sell her store. She told Mary Lou that. And she said, I was getting ready to put it with a realtor right now. And so we bought it. Well then, okay, my background is not in health food store running, retail. I didn't have any idea. Now I know how to make money in healthcare with intermediaries, good money with it. But that's a whole different ballgame getting it from insurance companies versus private pay from people coming in and buying something. And I said, God, if you want me to do this, then you're going to have to be my CFO. Because I don't know what I'm doing. And God's been our CFO. And it works. The issue with the radio station, I've really been impressed for over 15 years to have a radio station in Newport. And a year ago, I was at ASI, and I met the folks at Radio 74. And it seemed like, that was interesting. Well, shortly thereafter, I was speaking in Hickson, like here, and the folks from Radio 74 were there. And he said, listen, the FCC has a license coming. And you ought to apply for it. And the approach to that whole process where people get really tore up because it's a bidding process. You know, y'all did the bidding here when y'all went for it. And how does it work? And how do we put it up? And there was an issue of tower. 2 different places fell through. And where are we going to put it? And it was, God, if you want a radio station, you take care of it. I got other things to do. And if we have that mindset, God, take that. I have not been stressed at all on this. I want to be there and help them with it, but I'm not stressed with it at all the whole time. The FCC making their decision, the antenna, well, God, if you want it to work, it's going to work. If it's not, then you don't want it to work. The finances, if you don't want the finances to work, and God's provided the whole way through. That's what we got to do on a daily basis with everything, is have that relationship that we allow Him to do that. Now, it's very obvious that I don't allow Him on everything. But the more and more, we got to let Him take over and just say, as I was saying to, who was it yesterday? Scrub nurse, a philosophy. I don't think she's here. How we look at doing what we do, God's the surgeon, we're the scrub nurse. God says scalpel, you hand Him scalpel, and He does the work. Sponge, you hand Him the sponge, He does the work. And so often we think what we're trained at. I was trained this at SMC. I was trained this at UT. I was trained this in corporate America. You have to do it. Right? Yes, we have to do things working with Him, but it is He who is doing it. And if we have that, does that scrub nurse, if things are going well, if it goes bad, she's probably stressed. But if everything's going honky-dory on that heart transplant, she's just handing tools to him. Right? And that's what we should be able to do. A merry heart is huge. Disease is sometimes produced and is often greatly aggravated by the imagination. Many are lifelong invalids who might be well if they only thought so. I had an aunt out in Hickson. Her husband owned Barker Oil Company. They were well-to-do. Every time someone came to my aunt's house who had some health condition, she had it. She would pack up and go to a Mayo clinic in Rochester and go check it out because she just knew she had it. It's up here so many times.
The thing about that is, the doctor's got a lot to do.
That's true. It does do all that. So, are you ready? I'm giving you some more prescriptions. Here's a prescription. Courage. Hope. Faith. Sympathy. Love. Promote health. And prolong life. Do you have courage? Do you have hope? Do you have faith? Do you have sympathy for others? That's huge. Some people just only care about themselves, and they don't have sympathy for that other person. Do you have love? See, there are 2 words in this universe. This universe boils down to 2 words. Love is of God. Self is of Satan. Now, what some people do is they kind of get off the wrong track. Satan uses things and you get off the wrong track. And there are some people who just say, oh, then all I have to just love. Just love, do whatever I want to, just love. And they don't understand the philosophy of turning away from wrong. They just love. That's a problem. A contented mind. Is your mind contented? A cheerful spirit is health to the body and strength to the soul. And so when we're thinking things that are all tore up in our mind, we might need to just quit thinking that way, because it's going to tear us up. And unfortunately, as I mentioned earlier or yesterday, some people just like to play with that. They have OCD of just what happened to them 50 years ago. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, just love playing it. It's like a hog playing in slop. And it is slop. They're just playing in it and playing in it and playing in it, and they don't step out of it and wash off. Gratitude. Still more prescriptions. Are these prescriptions? Absolutely are. Gratitude, rejoicing, benevolence. What's benevolence? Giving. Yeah, giving, sharing. When we give our tithes and our offerings. Well, let me back. Benevolence is that person. When we have communion, we have an offering for those in need. We call it a poor fund. That's benevolence. When you see a person in need, you give money. It may not be money. You give them a coat. You give them whatever. That's benevolence. Food, benevolence. Trusting God's love and care. These are health's greatest safeguards. Again, she talks about 8 laws of health. But as much as she talks about this, I believe this is like a 9th. Absolutely. That's a good point. So the benevolence is not expecting something in return. True. But as much as I see this, as we've been going over the last several slides, I believe a 9th law of health is the condition of the mind being happy. I really believe so.
Yeah, I was going to say all of that
Yeah,
contributes to how.
it's true. The relationship that exists between the mind and the body is very intimate. When one is affected, the other sympathizes. The condition of the mind affects the health to a far greater degree than many realize. Many of the decisions from which men suffer are the result of mental depression. Now we're going to the problem ones. Grief, anxiety, discontent, remorse, guilt, distrust, all tend to break down the life forces to invite decay and death. So those others were things that you want to do. These are prescriptions to stay away from. Discontent. Do you have something in your mind that you have remorse? It may be remorse that you did. Ask for forgiveness. It may be, don't just keep playing in it. Guilt. Again, ask for forgiveness. Distrust. My father-in-law used to always say, a man that does not trust is a man that cannot be trusted. So how can I manage my stress? There's controllables and non-controllables, and we talked about this yesterday with the piece of paper. Taking that T-bar, and we've already talked about this. It's very powerful. What are your controllables? Nutrition, what I'm about to share, we take for granted. As I mentioned yesterday, we've had this prescription for over 161 years. Oh, it's just those. I had a guy come in and his wife one day, they're from Knoxville, and they drove into Newport, and both of them had health conditions, and they were in their early 60s. More towards their mid-60s. They're about to retire. The wife went to the bathroom, the husband sits down, we're waiting on him to come back, and Carson, my youngest son, had made a sign of these. And the man's just staring there looking at him. And he goes, those are the keys to health. Both worked in healthcare their whole life. He'd never seen that list before. I said, what are you talking about? You know, ask questions. Where are they coming from? What are you talking about? He said, I've worked in healthcare my whole career, and those 8 items are the keys to health. Interesting, huh? As I listened, I like studying what Harvard has to say. I like studying what Cornell has to say. I like studying what Mayo has to say and Cleveland Clinic and various places. They keep saying 7 of these. They're missing one. Which one are they missing? Trusting God. There's 2 problems with that. One, they're missing the power of it. 2, when I share these now, people go, oh, I've seen that already. Harvard's talking about that, and they just ignore it. Or, oh, Cornell's talking about that. And they're now missing that 8th law, trusting God. And that opportunity for me to share it because they already know it and they think they don't need to take time to listen to it. Exercise, water, so basic. Sunshine, temperance, making the right decisions, pure air, rest, and trust in God. Those 8 laws, and I would like to add the 9th one, which was also mentioned, and that's being a contented mind, being happy. I think make huge. When I sit down with a person and I take a history of what's going on with them, and then I ask them these questions. Oh, I understand that. I understand why you have this problem. I understand why you have this problem. Right? Because of physiology. The guy I mentioned yesterday that came in and he's a diabetic and he's drinking 3 liters of Mountain Dew a day. Is that a problem for diabetes? Yeah. It's huge. Yeah. I have people come in and they have, let's say they have COPD and they want me to help them with their emphysema. And then they're still smoking.
I've seen them smoke with oxygen in their mouth.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, or have had surgery. I've had multiple patients that have had surgery and because of cancer, and they have a stoma, and they're breathing through here. I mean, it's smoking through here. Crazy. Nutrition. The increased amount of adrenaline that is suddenly released into the body during stress causes the body to mobilize and quickly utilize important vitamins and nutrients such as amino acids, B vitamins, vitamin C, and minerals like magnesium, potassium, and phosphorus. So a couple things happen here. One is we dump those, therefore it affects our immune system, but also we need some of those to deal with the next stressor, and it's gone and we don't have it. B vitamins, lithium, magnesium, to deal with the next one. And therefore we're more prone to have even more stress because we don't have those nutrients. It is therefore critical to ensure adequate and constant replenishment of these important nutrients during times of physical, emotional, and physiological stress. And what is the best source of these nutrients? Food. Yeah, our food. And yes, there's times for isolated items, like the allicin for the immune system. I have a tooth here, my canine tooth here, went bad 4 years ago. And my dentist said, we need to pull it. He said, you've got infection there, there's nothing we can do. We need to either do a root canal or we need to pull it. And root canal wasn't an option. I didn't want a root canal. Or we need to pull it and leave it out or put an implant. And I said, okay, right now, is it causing harm? He said, right now, it is not causing harm, but it's about to. It's still there because I use allicin. And allicin has kept it at bay for 4 years. And it's doing well. So that's an isolate. Why? Because I can't eat that many cloves of garlic.
Wouldn't want to.
To get that amount of allicin, I would have to do over 2,000 cloves of garlic. And I can't do that much. There's 24 cloves of garlic in 1 drop of allicin. There's another item that's an isolate that's tremendous, that's been isolated, and that is D-mannose. Who's ever had D-mannose? It is the best for a UTI, IC, interstitial cystitis, and honeymoon syndrome. D-mannose. Dash mannose. I have urologists in Knoxville and Asheville that send their patients to me for D-mannose, both for urinary tract issues and also works for IC, interstitial cystitis. To get that much cranberries, you'd have, an example, I was walking by the nurse's station one time and I overheard the physician say to the nurse, give Mrs. Jones 1 cup cranberry juice Q-meal every meal. Nutritionist is sitting there also at the nurse's station. He says, that's not enough. You need to give them a quart meal to do the job. Well, that's not an option. Look at all the fructose. But you can get that much if you isolate it to just the D-mannose. The D-mannose is like a magnet. And you put 1 teaspoon every waking 2 hours and then force fluids. And it collects the pathogen and then you urinate it out and it's like a dump truck and it carries it out. And then 2 hours later you put in another teaspoon. You dump it out. Put in another teaspoon, you dump it out. Amazing how well it works. I have ladies that come in, and sometimes we're busy, and they're hurting, and they'll just go over to open it up, either shake it in their mouth or go back and get a spoon and take it. They tell me the itching, stinging, burning is gone within 15 to 20 minutes. That's fast. It's phenomenal. That's an isolate. How about bromelain? You can't eat that much pineapple to get the effect of bromelain. So sometimes we have to take an isolate for a specific situation. But many times as we look at these nutrients, they work best synergistically. Where all those nutrients in the greens, it's just not the calcium, the magnesium, but everything else makes it work even better than an isolate. And so they synergistically work. And so our best source overall is the food we get. And Cornell has proved that. Cambridge has proved that in their departments of nutrition. But there are times that we may have to take an example. I mentioned yesterday, the old doc in 1977 that told me at Florida Hospital, Walt, the best thing he found for stress was B-complex. And when I asked T. Colin Campbell, how can I get that amount in my food? He says, you can't. You're going to have to supplement if they're that stressed. Today, most individuals lead chronically stressed lives, without a sufficient intake of essential minerals and vitamins through a healthy diet. And let me go back to minerals. Minerals are so, so important. And let's go back to it. You've got fats, proteins, and complex carbohydrates. And then you have vitamins. Vitamins are the catalysts that kick on fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So even though you take 8 cylinders worth of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, they're not going to function at 8 cylinders unless you have vitamins at 8 cylinders. But then so the vitamins are a catalyst. But then there's another catalyst, and that is minerals. Minerals have to be at 8 cylinders to turn on vitamins. They're a catalyst for the vitamins. For the vitamins then to work at 8 cylinders. And then when the vitamins are 8 cylinders, because you had 8 cylinders of minerals, then the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates work at 8 cylinders. Does that make sense? But where's the weak link? This guy right here, minerals. Because of soil erosion, because of processed foods, we're not getting our minerals. But then University of North Carolina, Department of Agriculture found that, and I think I mentioned this yesterday, that hybrid seeds only uptake 40% of the nutrients that heirloom seeds produce out of the soil. So you're only getting 40 cents on a dollar. Most of our food is hybrid seeds. So we've got hybrid seeds, we've got processed foods, and we have erosion. We don't have adequate mineralization. And so we need to fix our own food that has the heirloom seeds, that has the amended soil, that, we've got good food. If not, we need to take trace minerals in order to get that, in order to kick on the vitamins, which then are going to kick on the fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. And we need minerals.
We take something sometimes we not consist of called fulvic minerals.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know?
I've heard of it. I'm not familiar with it. I use something called trace minerals by Concentrace.
Okay.
And you can do something called SOL, S-O-L. And that is where you take, I used to use a salt out of the Sea of Cortez, but then they tested it and it was having issues after Fukushima in the water. So I quit using it. But you can say you listen to Barbara. Barbara talks about Celtic salt and the minerals. But then there's minerals in Himalayan. And then there's actually minerals that are in Celtic that aren't in Himalayan. There's minerals in Himalayan that aren't in Celtic. So I was listening to one nutritionist that said we ought to use a combination of both. Use these in this recipe and these in this recipe, and that way you're getting nutrients, other minerals that the other one doesn't have. But what you do is you take a bottle, say a pint jar, and you put about an inch of whatever salt you're using, Himalayan or trace minerals, or Celtic. Celtic comes out of Asheville, which comes out of France. And then you put water in there and shake it up. I'm glad I didn't have top off. And then you let it sit. Now this part is called SOL, and it's an acronym, and I don't remember what it stands for. And you take a teaspoon twice a day of that. And this will keep breaking down. You shake it up each time, and this will start disappearing. You just add more in it, and that is a very economical way to get trace minerals. Just do a teaspoon of that twice a day.
In a pint of water.
Pardon?
In a pint.
In a pint of water. Mm-hmm.
A pint of
And it doesn't matter the volume. Well, it probably is a pint of water, and just keep it about an inch in the bottom.
Does drinking alkaline water have any difference on the body?
Alkaline water is going to be a pH issue, but it won't affect the mineralization. You could put alkaline water in there. You could.
Walt, I have a question.
Yes.
When you were in Blairsville, I purchased a bottle of
Blue bottle?
Yes.
That's the liquid trace minerals.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, concentrate. I learned that from Dr. Phil Collins years ago. It's a great, this is a really cool. Plantar fasciitis. 1 teaspoon, twice a day of that, and it's gone within 2 to 3 months.
Wow.
It's very effective. Yeah, it's really cool.
I got a question.
Yes.
Is there a publication that covers all of these herbs, minerals, and so forth, and what their specific places that they cover?
Do you have internet?
Yeah.
Okay, go to the internet. Go to my website, themustardseed.us, themustardseed.us, and go to my YouTube channel. And I don't remember if I've put up the herb cabinet or not, but the herb cabinet will answer a lot of those. If not, you can just call us and we can ship it to you. I forgot how many hours. It's like 18 hours or something. It's got a lot of new information. US. And then if it's not on YouTube, then you can just get those DVDs from me, and it's got a lot of hours. Like it's 5 hours and almost 6 hours of just herbs, and it's got almost 3 hours of just essential oils. And that's a question that people have. What is the different ways of using herbs? There's 3 main kind of uses of herbs. You've got just your plant, say plantain out there, or mullein, or whatever, kudzu. And you can use it as a tea. They can dry it and powderize it and put it in capsules. You can use it in fomentations and like a tea, and put it on the body, and transdermally it goes in. You can drink the tea. You can use the tea as an enema, like in cancer. That is just the basic herb being used, or you can just eat it, and that's getting the nutrition from the herb. But let's say it's right now, and you're growing a bunch of maters. Are those maters going to last till next year? You got to put them up. Y'all know what putting up means. So you got to put them up. And for those listening that don't know what putting up is, that means you can them or freeze them. And so you got to put them up so that they last. So the way you put up herbs, there's 2 ways to put up herbs. You can make an extract or a tincture, or you can make an essential oil. Now the extract or the tinctures are usually with alcohol, and I don't care as much for the alcohol. I like the extract, and so I'll use like vegetable glycerin and distilled water. And that herb now, you don't have to. Let's say if I had prostate problems and I'm needing to take Podiarco, then I don't have to bring that tea with me and make that decoction, which is simmering it for 20 minutes every day while I'm here. I can just bring that 1 ounce bottle with that little dropper and put 2 droppers under my tongue, and it's going to help me with the prostate. It's a lot easier, more convenient. Plus, it will last a couple years instead of an herb. Usually you want to use your herbs within 6 months, no more than a year. But you'd like to use them within 6 months. And then that way they're starting to grow again. Then you can herbs on steroids, and that is essential oils. Essential oils, an example, you would have to drink 14 water bottles of peppermint tea, 28 cups. 14 water bottles to equal the medicinal value of just 1 drop of peppermint essential oil. That is how concentrated it is. Remember, we used to have orange juice concentrated in the freezer section, and tart, and so you had to dilute it with water. Essential oils are extremely, extremely concentrated, very effective, very powerful, and that's even more put up, where it's stronger, you don't have to use as much, and it lasts even longer. So there's different ways that you can use herbs. And so you can go to that, the herb cabinet, and there's all other kinds of things. If you're into herbs and if you're wanting to really learn, there's a book. Y'all know what the PDR is, Physician's Desk Reference for medications. That same company they've quit making them, but they had made, the last volume is volume 4. If you can get a hold of one, the price just went skyrocket because they don't make them anymore, print them anymore. But it's called PDR for Physician's Desk Reference, PDR for Herbal Medicine. It's an excellent book. It's just like a regular drug PDR, but it has all the chemicals and well, not all, but a lot of the chemicals in the herbs. If you want to really get into herbs, go to something called the Pharmacopoeia. The Pharmacopoeia for herbs. And the Pharmacopoeia could be 30 pages on just one herb. All the chemicals and just all kinds. You really get into it there. Okay, let's see here. Vitamins, vitamin A, B complex, vitamin C. Due to time, and some folks are leaving, instead of getting into the science of it, let me just share with y'all some things you can do for stress. We have those 8 laws. What are some of the herbs or the vitamins or things that you can take? I mentioned B complex. It's huge. Lithium orotate, and I learned that one from Neil Nedley. Lithium orotate. That is not the drug lithium. They have lithium aspartate and lithium orotate. I was in Minnesota teaching last year. I'm sorry, no, I was wrong. I was in Winnipeg, Canada. Who grew up on a farm? Anybody live on a farm? These folks had a 4,500 acre farm, and they just bought another 1,000 acres. Crazy. And they don't believe in paying anything on time. They buy everything with cash. So they just bought 1,000 acres and the implements, the tractors, the combines, and the implements for that 1,000 acres because it was a different farm. Crazy. But this lady's from Russia. And I was talking to her about, what, things to do for stress and anxiety. And she, and I mentioned lithium. I said, don't they have lithium springs in over in Europe? She goes, oh yeah. She says, before the wall fell, during the time of the USSR, the government told us that we were to go to lithium springs and bathe and drink the water. It kept the people calmed down. Their own people. Isn't that something? And it's kind of like a hot springs that has minerals in it. That's what they had that over there. We even have lithium springs in America. So lithium orotate is phenomenal for stress, anxiety, depression. Normally folks will take 5 milligrams 3 times a day, or at least dosing. I had a guy that came in one time with depression, and it took over 100 milligrams, but boom, it could kick him right out of depression. He was so depressed, he was having suicidal thoughts. He could not work, and he doesn't call me anymore, but he would call. And if I didn't get the call, I told Mary Lou and Walter, stop me, whatever I'm doing, to talk to this man because he's suicidal if he calls me. And he'd call, and he said, Walt, how you doing? I ain't doing good. Okay. Have you taken your lithium? No. Okay, thank you. He could remember to call me, but he could not remember to take his lithium orotate. And his depression was so bad. but it works well. Another great one is magnesium. Now, what happens with magnesium, and I didn't get to it here, but I'll explain it to you. When we're stressed, our adrenaline goes up, so we can fight or flight. But adrenaline has the benefits of getting us going, but adrenaline can harm the cells. So God puts a fire extinguisher system in our body, kind of like a hood system in a restaurant over the stove. So when we get stressed and our adrenaline goes up, the extinguishing system dumps this chemical throughout our whole body, and it protects, buffers the cells from this harmful chemical called adrenaline that can, it's harmful to the cell. It causes the right thing to happen, but it can damage the cell. So it protects the cells from the harmful effects of the adrenaline. So that person who's tore up all day long is dumping adrenaline is increasing adrenaline all day and is dumping magnesium all day. That person who has nightmares, that person who wakes up worrying about the kids, worrying about whatever, that person's cranking up the adrenaline and dumping the magnesium. The number one cause of restless leg syndrome is magnesium deficiency. 75% of restless leg syndrome, or Charlie horses, is magnesium deficiency. Next is dehydration. Next is potassium. Next is iron. I had an overdose happen one time. Woke up 4 o'clock in the morning, and daughter found her in the hallway. In the bathroom. And got there, and I woke her up with some stuff I had, and she just wasn't doing well. We got her into the hospital in town. They said, the doctor, ER doc says, I ain't dealing with this, ship her to Knoxville. Intubated her, sent her to Knoxville. Good thing you did. Because when she'd gone there before, she'd had some restless leg problems, and they'd given her these drugs to deal with the restless leg, and she became addicted to them and overdosed. When she got to Knoxville, they found all it was a potassium deficiency. Terrible, isn't it? Just potassium. Now, the ER docs in our area are finding more and more problems with restless leg problems because of iron deficiency. Why? People are not eating their grains. They're not eating the food with iron in it. They're eating processed foods. And so we're seeing iron deficiency now increasing. But what happens is when we're stressed, we dump magnesium. And we need magnesium to deal with the next stressor. I had a guy come in one Monday, and he'd gone to the hospital in Knoxville for palpitations, significant palpitations on Sunday. He was a young boy. He was like 28 years old. And so he came in on Monday morning, and he says, do you have anything that can help me? And I said, let's do magnesium. Now, what do we first do? We pray. You know, if I can't pray with them, I'll pray. And I was impressed to do magnesium. And I said, so he took the magnesium, came back in on Thursday, and he said, I've had no more problems. I said, did you have any major stressful event? Because he'd never had palpitations before. He was 28 years old. He said, yes. He said on Sabbath, he had had the worst stressful event in his life. It dumped his magnesium. Sunday, he was having significant heart issues because he didn't have enough magnesium. Another problem with magnesium is, say you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, or you're just that age that the doc says you need to start taking calcium, magnesium, and then you start taking calcium. The problem is when you take calcium, it takes half the amount of calcium and magnesium to break it down. You need a 2-1 ratio. And so if you do 1,000 milligrams of calcium, you need to be taking at least 500 milligrams of magnesium, or you're going to take magnesium from your already depleted body. It's estimated that 85% of Americans are deficient in magnesium. And there's a number of reasons. We're not eating foods with magnesium. Stress is the number one diagnosis in America. And so there's multiple issues going on causing our magnesium to be so low. Significant for cardiac, significant for brain, significant for brain, the muscles. You know that from muscles, you got to have magnesium. It's huge. Another one,
What foods are high in magnesium?
your greens. Greens are a great source. And I can't get people to do greens. They just don't like them.
Well, if you cook them for 3 hours, they're mush,
Yeah.
and that's typical Southern.
Yes, it is. It is. There's something that I have found for anxiety that is amazing. I mean, it is phenomenal. I had this girl come in. I was at the desk, at the counter, and I had 4 ladies there, kind of strung out this way. And Walter was sitting with a lady over where the herb cabinet is. And this girl comes in, she walks over to where my essential oils are. And you got to keep situational awareness. You know, in firefighting, you learn it's what kills a firefighter is loss of situational awareness. And especially wildland firefighters, but even structural fire, anything, got to keep situational awareness. And so this girl comes in, and I notice she's about to explode like Mount St. Helens. I mean, she was just, and her body language. And so I said, just a minute. So I walk over, and I said, ma'am, are you okay? She says, I am having the worst anxiety attack I've ever had. She's in her late 20s. No, she's in her, mid-late 20s. And I said, just a minute. So I went back to the back, and I got a bottle of lavender essential oil, and I got a bottle of vetiver essential oil that are mine. Now, you would have no idea that I have Tourette's, would you? Would you think I have Tourette's? Well, I do. But I pretty well keep it under control. There's times you can talk to Mary Lou. It is out there. But pretty well I can keep it under control by keeping my stress down. And so I do things to keep my stress down, what we talked about already. So I went and got my vetiver and my lavender that I use myself. And now get a person that's having a major anxiety attack and go to the doctor, and he says, okay, you need to take these drugs. Okay, doc, will you take them first? I want to see what they do to you. Is he going to do it? No way. And so I put a drop of lavender, and I rubbed it here, and I breathed it in. Transdermally, it's going into the blood here. And then when I breathe it in, it's going into the lungs, and it's going into the blood there. I put 1 drop of vetiver. It's a plant, Vetiver. 1 drop here, rubbed it, and I breathed it in a few times. And I said, can I do this to you? And she said, yes. So I put a drop of lavender, she did it. Put a drop of vetiver, she did it. I said, okay, just keep breathing it for a couple minutes. It's going to take a couple minutes. I'll be right back. Let me finish helping these ladies. So I walked back over. I finished checking this lady out. At that time, Walter was finishing with this lady here, and I motioned to Walter, now. And so he walks over to her, and he starts to talk to her. And it's a different voice. Now, have you ever talked to a person who's just super stressed out, anxiety, and they talk different? It was a different voice. So I said, just a minute to the other lady. So I walked over, and I said, ma'am, are you doing okay? She said, what did you just do to me? I said, what? She says, what did you just do to me? I said, what do you mean? You know, I want them to say it. She says, I was having the most anxiety attack I've ever had, and it is gone. What did you do to me? Now, what do I say? What do I say? That's what God just did. Do I take the credit? Did I do it? Did the vetiver do it? Did the lavender do it? God did it.
Amen.
Yes? It's a way that we can point the sin-sick soul to Christ. And I said, God used the lavender and vetiver to calm you down. I had a guy come in, this was this year, and he was 21 years of age. These poor kids today. And he was just, not doing good. He was doing so bad that I had two of the gals that were that had come in to help me do some pricing. I said, go to the other room. Don't even price out here. It's too noisy. Click, click, price gun. I said, go in there. And I walked up to him. I said, you just look at him and tell he wasn't doing good. And so I just sent him out, and no one else was there. And I said, can I help you? He says, I'm having a terrible anxiety attack. I did the same thing for him. And literally, within a couple minutes, it was totally down. I was in Pikeville. Y'all know where Pikeville is, Tennessee. And this guy comes in. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm teaching a class. And he was from the community. He comes up, and this eye straight, and this eye's going like this. And I said, are you okay? He said, I'm a Vietnam vet. And he says, I'm having a terrible PTSD attack. I said, okay. I did the same thing. He went back, sat down. We were in break. And he comes back up 4 or 5 minutes later, total symmetry. Isn't it amazing?
I use vetiver I do homeschool for my granddaughter, and she has anxiety.
Yes.
Focus issues.
Yes.
And I diffuse it.
Yes.
In class.
Is it working good?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. It's amazing what God has given us. Simple tools that we can use. So the lavender and vetiver, I use them, and you're just using it as preventive. Yeah. It's expensive, but it's worth it to calm down. I mean, it's a whole lot better than Ritalin.
Oh, listen, yeah.
Oh, Ritalin doesn't even work.
Yeah.
It causes more problems.
It does. I think our best thing to do, if I chose anything that I just shared with y'all, which is the best one that you would say was the best example I gave y'all? That gal who came down off the mountain out of Grassy and said, I met Jesus 2 years ago. That's the most important. Amen. It really is. And yes, then proactive. Do we follow these laws of health? The nutrition, the exercise, the waters, the sunshine, the temperance, the fresh air, the rest, and the trust in God. And it's not last because it's the least. It's the foundation. It's the foundation. And then, yes, we look at the nutrition that we eat. Are we eating healthy food? Are we eating a whole food, plant-based diet with variety? See, Campbell said a plant-based diet is not enough. Fruit Loops are a plant-based diet. Are they not? Fruit Loops are plant-based. There's no animals in Fruit Loops.
There's not plants either, is there?
But they're sweet.
Oh, yeah.
Processed, though. No whole food. Do you know Oreos are plant-based?
They're vegan, too.
They're vegan. Yeah, it's plant-based. It's vegan, yeah. Yes.
So the lavender and the vetiver, do you do that every day, or do you wait for an attack?
It depends on the person.
If you did it every day, would it lose its effectiveness?
Apparently not.